the way in which we build software is changing because historically software would get built optimized for humans to use it. You're now at the mode where software has to get built that's not just optimized for humans, but also agents. The other thing that we're doing is building our own models. So we will have bespoke models that we've built for the network, like I mentioned, the deep network model. But also we announced a model at RSA for security, right? The Foundation AI team.
And it's open source, right?
And it's open source.
With AI Canvas, we're making this incredibly simple. I'm just going to type in here, troubleshoot this ticket. Now, this is where it starts to get really cool. The deep network model that you just announced is going to start breaking down this ticket and analyzing that it needs more data. It now is going to go to Meraki and pick out the packet loss trends, and it's going to generate the UI for you.
Hey everyone, David Bombal back with the amazing Jeetu. Jeetu, great to have you back on the show.
David, always great to be here, man.
You've been busy. I've seen a lot of announcements coming from Cisco, a lot of changes. One of the big things I saw recently is you have this blog entry called The Next Wave of AI is Here. So maybe you can start with that and then talk about how that affects networking, infrastructure, because, AI is changing the world.
Yeah, we are, I'm so proud of the team. They're doing a great job. And if you really take a step back and zoom out, we are probably witnessing one of the most seismic shifts that we've seen in human history as far as a technology shift is concerned. And when you say the next wave of AI is here, the reason I believe that is we have now moved officially from the past 2.5 years of being largely engaging with chatbots on a question-answer kind of mode where, I'm going to ask it a question that the chatbot intelligently answers, to now agents being able to conduct tasks and jobs almost fully autonomously on behalf of humans. And I think that shift is going to have a profound set of implications on everything, the way in which we build software, the way that infrastructure is built out, the way in which safety and security work, the way in which we think about even data center build-outs throughout the world. There's going to be a very, very different demand signal than the one that we've seen so far. The inference volume is going to go up because in these chatbots, what you would have is these sporadic spikes, right? Like I'm asking a question, I get a response back. Whereas in Agentic, these agents are proactively doing work behind the scenes. And so you have this constant volume of inference demand that stays up. And so that's going to have a very different level of infrastructure build out even. In fact, trillions of dollars are going to be spent on it.
So I've seen the examples. You spoke about the operator in our previous interview. And how you can book a night out, that kind of thing. But is Agentic AI for the enterprise as well?
Yes. And as you saw with AI Canvas, that is an example of Agentic AI for Agentic Ops, right? Where we can make sure that we manage the entirety of the infrastructure of Cisco in this dynamic way where you have UIs that are dynamically generated, right? And the thing that you have to keep in mind in this is the way in which we build software is changing because historically software would get built optimized for humans to use it. You're now at the mode where software has to get built that's not just optimized for humans, but also agents. And so it might be a text-first interface, but the way that we did it in the past is you had this kind of assistant-based mode that was on the side that acted independently. It was now what you're going to have. So for example, you built dashboards and then there was an assistant on the side. Now what you'll have is AI is working hand in hand with the human to dynamically construct dashboards. And those dashboards are going to solve problems that we were just not able to solve before because the kind of troubleshooting you can do, the kind of correlation of data that you can have, you just couldn't solve before. And so in my mind, what you'll see is a completely different way that the world will operate with infrastructure, and it'll get simplified. So imagine if the level of dexterity that you needed went down dramatically for managing infrastructure, what that would do in the unlocking potential.
Yep, exactly.
Right? Because this is still very complicated. And so what we're trying to do is just keep simplifying the way that infrastructure can get managed.
This is AI Canvas. What you're seeing here on the left-hand side is the AI assistant where you can use natural language to be able to communicate with the canvas. And then on the right is where the agents and humans are going to work together to be able to solve problems. All right. Now let's imagine that there is a network outage, right? And you want to be able to start, troubleshooting this. Normally what happens is you actually have a ServiceNow ticket that's raised, and the ticket has all of the details, about what's going on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post this message here and tell the assistant to go fetch that data. And automatically you'll notice that it's gone out to ServiceNow and pulled all of that information right here. With AI Canvas, we're making this incredibly simple. I'm just going to type in here, troubleshoot this ticket. Now this is where it starts to get really cool. The deep network model that you just announced is going to start breaking down this ticket and analyzing that it needs more data. It now is going to go to Meraki and pick out the packet loss trends, and it's going to generate the UI for you. So you just saw that it created a widget that said,
that widget was not something you built, it actually generated the widget.
AI generates that widget, recognizes that the next thing that you're going to need is a time series data. And so you can see it's constantly thinking right here at the bottom, and it's pulling data that it needs. It recognizes now that it needs data from Thousand Eyes, not just from Meraki, to be able to show you exactly a path visualization that tells you where this outage might be happening. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as you see that, you can see, boom, it's going to generate that path visualization for you and lays it all out. And this is where these things are not just a one-time widget. The agentic ops ensures that it's constantly going back out, fetching you live refresh data, so it's always current whenever you come into this board. So you're going to see it's thinking right there, and it's going to pop back out in a second. But you're going to see that the graphs, the data from the Splunk and the application logic is going to go through a change. Boom. You notice that the packet loss has dropped.
Amazing.
And the application's back up and running. All of this was live, and finally you have to write a report. Thank you.
What I loved about that demo is exactly that. The first thought I had was, now I don't have to learn like 20 different management platforms. It's so complex, especially for someone who's new.
Yep.
I just go to the chat, and that basically pulls all that data back.
And it interoperates with all the different products. We have a custom model that we've built. So that custom model is going to be specifically, we call it the deep network model. And that custom model is going to give you a very different level of efficacy and responsiveness than what you would get otherwise. The thing I usually say is you don't want to use the same model for writing poetry as you did for managing your infrastructure. I mean, they require a little bit of specialization. And I think the big trend that you're seeing in the market right now is you will see the size of these models go down dramatically, the specialization of that model being heightened quite a bit. Sam Altman had a great quote, which is, the future models will be extremely small in size, very large context, very large context windows, about 1 trillion, tokens of context window. And, it'll be integrated into everything. And the reason you can have a small size model is because you have these data integrations into everything, which is what you saw with AI Canvas. We tie into networking, we tie into security, we tie into Splunk, we tie into observability, we tie into collaboration. Then we can make sure that those things can get correlated together. But right now, so far, we've been using these models as databases.
Yeah.
That's why you keep having larger and larger parameter windows. And then in the future, I think you're going to have a small model that can run with much lower compute capacity and then just integrates into all the data stores that are out there.
Question that always comes up, right? I got to ask this. Will AI take my job away? Or what's going to happen with jobs? Are they going to change? Will there be fewer jobs? Will there be more jobs, different jobs?
Your audience is a lot of early in career people. And here's my recommendation I'd have. Firstly, don't worry about AI taking your job. Worry about you getting a level of dexterity with AI so that you're the best person for using AI to do your job. And then you have to ask yourself the question, it's not what AI can do well, it's what you want to spend your time doing, because the rest of the stuff that you don't want to do, give it to AI to get done. And there's going to be things that you're going to be good at and AI is going to be good at. There's going to be things that you don't get to because AI is going to be able to do it because right now it's been on backlog forever and you've not been able to get to. Give it to AI to do. And then there are going to be things that AI is just inherently better at that you shouldn't worry about doing, because you'll be able to solve problems with AI as a companion that you couldn't solve by yourself.
I wanted to ask about the effect of agentic AI on networking. A lot of people who watch these videos are networking and security, cybersecurity. What's the effect of agentic AI on, cyber networking, etc.?
I think agents are going to be these, the next wave of evolution of AI, where they're autonomously conducting tasks initially and then jobs, right? And what we have to think about is, in network infrastructure, the complexity is so high that wouldn't it be great if you had someone that could autonomously create hygiene in your network, that could autonomously make sure that it's monitoring your network in the right way, and when something's not right, it's taking the actions and coming back to you. Where our jobs will change slightly in the fact that we're going to be more observing AI, and we're going to make sure that we're much more of an orchestrator rather than the doer. And then let's have someone do the thing, and then we can orchestrate that body of work. And I think the throughput capacity is going to be phenomenal. Right now, I think what people do is they keep thinking of this as a zero-sum game. If AI does this, then I'm not going to have a job. I think there's, I'll give you our example. There's so much potential of ideas that we have not been able to prosecute yet because we just don't have the time, because the resources were scarce. If we are able to go use AI, we can now prosecute many, many more ideas, and that constraint goes away. And when you live in a world of abundance, you can get a lot more done. So what I would like to have is the throughput be 10x, 50x greater, rather than saying, oh, we need to make sure that we're kind of doing a zero-sum game of either or. Either I'm going to do the job, or AI is going to do the job. Maybe we actually evolve to get to be 50x more productive as this augmented capacity comes to us, so that 8 billion humans can actually do the throughput of 80 billion humans.
My question was maybe not clear. What I was trying to allude to was like the constraints on the network and power and stuff like that, is that's going to cause problems, right?
I see. Well, so I think if you think about AI in general, there are three major constraints.
Yeah.
Right? Well, four if you count data, but the three on the infrastructure side is compute, which is also very power hungry, so power, and the network bandwidth. And then the fourth area that there's a constraint on is, a level of paucity of trust that people have in AI itself. And so you have to make sure that safety and security are dimensions that are accelerants for increasing confidence, that are accelerants for adoption, not impediments to adoption. This is the first time that that's happening. So I feel like when you think about that, you are right. We have to make sure that we get the infrastructure to be more power efficient, higher performance, lower latency, and that's what the network should do, so that every kilowatt of power that we can save on the network for moving a packet can go to the GPU for processing the packet.
Yeah, I heard you said something along the lines that if the network is slowing the GPUs down, you're wasting a lot of money, right?
Yeah, the really bad state in AI, or failure state in AI, is idle time for a GPU, right? Because if you're constrained on GPU capacity and the GPU is not running at full utilization, you've got a problem. So what we need to do is make sure that the latency of the packet getting to the GPU does not actually slow down, and that does not create idle time for the GPU. And that's actually important on the training run, but it's also important on inferencing, as agents are continually demanding more and more from the inference infrastructure.
So could you share some of the highlights of like Cisco Live, the announcements that you've done? I mean, you've got the Canvas, AI Canvas is fantastic because it's collaborative.
Yep.
It's a fantastic solution. But what else is Cisco doing?
So the way you should think about it is, we are solving three large problems for customers, and we want to make sure across all those three areas we're helping customers shift to this agentic era of AI, right? So the first problem that we're solving is helping customers build out AI-ready data centers. The second problem we're solving is we're helping customers build out future-proof workplaces. Why are those two important? Because one hosts the human workers, future-proof workplaces. One hosts the digital workers, which are the AI-ready data centers. And the two of them get connected with secure global connectivity. And then what we need to do as a third problem is, how do we make sure that the infrastructure is secure and resilient? And if we can solve those three, so in each one of those areas, we had massive announcements. So if you think about what we announced in the AI-ready data centers, convergence of our Nexus dashboard to include ACI.
Yep.
And so you now have a single dashboard and a simple way to manage your data center infrastructure. Similar convergence between Catalyst and Meraki on the campus side. So you actually have a single management plane for managing and a single piece of hardware and single licensing model for managing your campus and branch. And then we've got a tremendous amount of innovation that's happening, including an agentic SOC that's actually starting to get built out. We actually had a tremendous amount of announcements that we made at RSA just a couple of months ago. And so there's a huge amount of cycles of innovation on digital resilience. And so those are the three areas where we've done it. Now, by the way, AI Canvas was monumental on this entire thing, because what we'll have essentially with AI Canvas is the ability with agentic ops to integrate the entirety of our portfolio, not just networking, but networking and security and observability and Splunk and all of it, right? And collaboration. The other thing that we're doing is building our own models. So we will have bespoke models that we've built for the network, like I mentioned, the deep network model.
Yep.
But also we announced a model at RSA for security, right? The Foundation AI team.
And it's open source, right?
And it's open source. And by the way, we've now got about 40,000 downloads on Hugging Face in the past month or two. And what's even more exciting is that model now has been quantized, which means that it's now a 4-bit model. What does that mean? We can run that model on a CPU. It doesn't even require a GPU on a single laptop.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so that completely changes the cost economics of the entire game. And automation of the SOC will happen with those models. So like you're starting to see these things start to have a compounding effect on each other, so that we can build out a platform where every innovation we make in one area adds value to something in the other area.
I've heard you say, and I think it's very true, it's a very exciting time, right, to be in IT, in networking, in cybersecurity, and AI.
This is probably the best time I can think of to be alive in tech, because every assumption we've made in tech gets completely changed, and the speed at which we're moving is astronomical. And here's the crazy part. This speed is constrained by infrastructure. If we actually make infrastructure not a constraint, imagine what we could do with AI. And that's the problem that we're solving at its core.
I'm so glad you said that, because it's that whole concern, right? AI is going to take my job away, but you're saying it's the flip side, actually. It's a really exciting time to get into this.
It's a really exciting time. And I think the question you should ask is, what job do you want to spend your time doing? Because the only constrained commodity you have in life is time. And so where do you want to spend your time? What time? Where is it that's going to give you the most return? And let the machine do the things that are mundane, and let the machine do the things that it can do better, so that you can spend your time thinking at a higher level and orchestrating the bodies of work that you need to orchestrate.
When I spoke to you last time, and I gave you like a dodgy quiz, and I said, where are we on the hype cycle? And you said there's always just going to be another step function, and it looks like this is what's happened now.
I actually think AI is underhyped in one area.
Yeah, what's that?
The original insights that AI generates that allow us to solve problems that we haven't even dreamt of solving yet, it's completely underhyped. I think there's this narrative of AI is going to take my job. I mean, yes, there's going to be some jobs where there'll be displacement, and we have to make sure that we're thoughtful about those. But it's very hard for AI right now to replace human instinct and human judgment. And we got to make sure that we give ourselves a little bit more credit on that front, and ensure that we start thinking about solving problems that we up until now have been conditioned to say they're unsolvable, because now we've got this complete unlock that can happen with AI, and that's underhyped.
So first we had ChatGPT. That was like a huge change. Now we've got Agentic AI. What's coming? Is it quantum? Is it
I think
humanoids?
quantum will be there, AGI. And by the way, the interesting part is what seemed like magic 2 years ago with ChatGPT just seems like a normal everyday occurrence. Like we use it in our daily lives. Agents are going to be the same way. So like, when AGI happens, like if you look back, this was a really good point that Sam Altman made, which is if you look back 2.5 years ago and thought, what about the ChatGPT 2.5 years ago would make it feel like AGI? Where we are today makes it feel like AGI.
Yeah.
But that's not how we think about it. So we've shifted our definition of it. And that's what we have to keep in mind is, these things are continually compounding. And when they compound, you're going to keep getting better at the things, and then they'll become normal. I always tell people, take the Waymo the first time in San Francisco. It'll feel like magic. By the second and third time, you're complaining about the seats not being comfortable. We get used to it. And that's the great part about humanity, is we get used to the new normal, and so we then strive for more, and that'll continue to keep happening.
Is Cisco going to be an AI company, or is it already an AI company? It sounds. You said Cisco is like in the middle of this AI revolution, if you like.
We are an AI first secure networking company. And I think anyone that is a skeptic for AI probably does not belong at Cisco.